Hey folks, it's just me this week. We rolled a 1 on scheduling, and Matt rolled a 1 on not getting sick. So I hope you like my face, and you're not just here for Matt. If so, it's gonna be bad times. But since it's just me this week, and we couldn't get a backup guest going, I'm gonna do something a little bit different, not quite our usual raw thing. But we are going to be going through and talking about adventure paths in Mutant Crawl Classics. I was kind of inspired by Tim White. He's got Tim L. White. He's got a blog. He did an adventure path thing for Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's been posted on like subreddit, and you can find it, I think, online. And I've seen people say it's really helpful, but I haven't seen anyone do that for Mutant Crawl Classics. So I spent some time and put a few of them together, mostly using published first party, but there's a little bit of third party in there too. So we will see how we want to go this week with that, and we'll do a little kind of solo discussing of it. But I'm paying attention to that chat, so ask me about the modules, what tweaks, and I might ask the folks in the chat a couple of things, because I haven't run all of them, but I've played a good chunk of them, and we will see how it goes. But I know there's one module right now where I'm going to chat. How'd you do this? I couldn't figure it out when I ran this, but with all that starting, yes, Raw the Gathering and Rules the Gathering. I see y'all in the chat. If we can bring up our handout number 1 for Campaign Path 1, the one I like to call the Creeping Horror Campaign Path, because it starts out mostly normal, but it gets just a little weirder and weirder as we go. So you start with Reliquary of the Ancient Ones. At level 1, you do Museum at the End of Time, which is kind of mixed. It says it's level 1 on that teeny little text you can see there, but in the text it says level 0. I say use it as level 1. And Incursion of the Ultra Dimension level 2, and level 3 Evil of the Ancients. So let's talk about each one of those and give a little background, which it also, folks haven't figured it out tonight, going to be a whole lot of spoilers on this episode. I think it's mostly judges watch this anyway, so that'll be just fine. But yeah, if you're intending to play basically any published MCC campaign thing, I'm going to be giving spoilers for basically everything. I'm not going to be going super in-depth on anything, but you're going to get a little hint as to what every module contains, and a little bit about the beginning and the end. But again, I'm going to still leave it vague enough, nondescript enough that it's not making everything bad. You'll still get plenty of surprises along the way. So, but let's talk about Reliquary of the Ancient Ones, our funnel that we're gonna introduce our PCs into. Basically, PCs are told, "Hey, go into this place. It is we got to do the rite of passage. You got to go find some artifacts, bring them back to the village. Some of you aren't going to make it, and get going." PCs go down into this weird place. They get a rope. They go down. It's gonna be fine. We promise. And you basically are on the holodeck, is what it is. This whole adventure, Reliquary of the Ancient Ones, it's all holograms. But hey, we got someone turned off those safety controls. So you're gonna get killed for sure. There's a bunch of different rooms, and these rooms mostly don't interact with one another, but you can, if you find some artifact in one room, generally you can bring it into another. Because it's a hologram and, you just go from kind of area to area, you get a very diverse taste of what Mutant Crawl Classics has to offer with that. There's kind of a little bit of a dungeon crawly room. There is a room that introduces patrons, 3 different patrons, but also calls for PvP, very much so. So maybe that's a room to skip, depending on your play group there. I know one of my favorite rooms is the time loop room, which is like a cool puzzle, and there's like a time loop, and a nuclear reactor might melt down, and things can go awry. And there might be a TPK in there, but don't worry, time loop. We're going to go right back to before that actually happened, if a TPK does occur. And everyone's going to have some like very strange memories of something that did it not happen. I'll say there is, and here's one of those. Chat, how do you run the robot singularity room? It's a weird one. I've played in this, I've run it, and it's one that kind of stumps me. I don't know how to do it in a satisfactory way. So that also, if you're needing to cut down on some of the room options for time, that'd be one I suggest. But then at the end of it, what happens? Well, there's a few ways it can go, but one of them involves a PC basically becoming a fledgling patron AI, merging with the computer in a very body horror kind of way. And that kind of starts out our horror in this campaign path. So we get through our funnel. Folks get to level 1. Send them to go to the museum at the end of time. Now, written mostly as a funnel, there's some things in there like some pretty gnarly monsters in the desert because there's a trek across the desert bit at the beginning. But maybe skip that silica snake or give some extra saves or something because otherwise it's going to outright kill someone. Written for a funnel, perfect. That's what it's meant to do. But if you're using a level 1, you got to tweak that. I'll also say this one, if you're looking to find it, it was the free RPG day of 2016. So maybe on the second-hand market, you can get it in print. But if not, look on Goodman Games' website or Drive-Thru RPG. You'll find it for $5 for the PDF. And you'll get Museum at the End of Time in there. And you also get Madhouse Meat for DCC Lankmar. So two things. Great adventures, both of them, for $5. The museum itself, if you want to do a one-shot, you can have that trek across the desert, or if you want to shorten it down, you can cut that out and maybe even fit this into like a 3-hour slot. The museum is, very exploration based. There's like a central node and then some branches you can go out, and you'll mostly go back to that central node to start reaching other areas, at least at the beginning. But the end of it has, for those of you who have seen the 2001: A Space Odyssey, we got a Star Child at the end of it. So you start getting into like, what are these extra dimensional creatures that are out there, and what do they want of us? And you get, we had some body horror, and now we have some extra dimensional starting to get into cosmic horror. But you just get a taste of it here. The Star Child's mostly, it's not outright hostile, I would say, but its existence does not line up with the existence of the PCs. We'll put it like that. Another good note for this one, Museum at the End of Time. Yes, indifferent is a good way to put it. Ghostly Squid. Another cool thing about this adventure, since it was in a free RPG day booklet, it was assuming people didn't have the Mutant Crawl Classics core book. So it does a lot of like, hey, this is what an artifact check is. This is how this works. It does a lot of like really quickly and concisely explaining MCC rules. So I'd suggest picking it up, even if you do have the core rulebook, because it's going to have things kind of written in a pretty condensed format that could be a good reference material. I believe I've heard that there's going to be a MCC quick start book in the future, but until that happens, this is probably your best option for that. Of course, also having the judges screen, super good. Next up, level 2 for this creeping horror path, we're going to go with Incursion of the Ultra Dimension. This one, it starts with a flash flood, and you got to survive that first of all. It wipes out your village, and you guys see this structure rise from the monster ocean, which we don't get much info about what the heck the monster ocean is until much later in Into the Glowing Depths. We'll talk about that one on a different adventure path, but you could push it into here. However, if we're going with that horror vibe, it's not quite as horrific, though you could slot it in and swap it with Evil of the Ancients at level 3. But back to Incursion of the Ultra Dimension. It has this big structure out in the ocean to explore. You go in there and you find that, hey, as if the title didn't kind of give anyway, there is an incursion from the Ultra Dimension. And there are these ultra-dimensional creatures in here that are very hostile to life as you know it. The dungeon is done in a pretty cool way, too. think of a 6-sided dice. Each side of that die, and there's like a diagram in the book for the judges to look at. Each of the levels of the dungeon connect just like a 6-sided die would. So your gravity is weird, though the PCs may not realize it at first or at all during the adventure. Maybe they don't catch on. But it's a really cool place to explore. A lot of combat in this, not much RP. That's mostly been true of the adventures I've talked about thus far. But there can be some good moments in here too. Most of them are going to be with like AI, however. But again, we've got that outside horror, that those influences from other worlds than these. And hopefully the PC solve this issue. If not, these ultra-dimensional creatures are going to keep coming back, and you've already got a village to rebuild because that flash flood really did ruin it. So that's what's going to happen in Incursion of the Ultra Dimension. Next up, we're going to level 3 with one of my favorites, Evil of the Ancients. This one, I thought of it when I was reading it. This is Event Horizon meets The Shining in a pre-Great Disaster research lab that is just super cursed. Mike Curtis has said he wrote a English haunted house story in Mutant Crawl Classics. So, he wrote it, so it's going to be more that. But my first pickup was, Event Horizon meets The Shining. It is almost no combat at all. There's like one obligatory combat thing right at the beginning. The rest of it is going through this really creepy lab. I guess actually no, there's another combat that can be in the hallways, but that's pretty much it. The other stuff is creepy labs, and as a judge, you should write down the will saves of the PCs that are involved in here, because basically you gotta have a tracker going, okay, Susie's character, she's failed twice, but Joe's character, he's failed 4 times. So when they go into this next room and I make some secret will saves, even if they both failed, Susie's character, she's going to have a different effect because she has had less failed saves, and Joe's had more. So the effect in here is going to be even worse for him. And, if you get to like 5 or 6 failed saves on these like experiencing and interacting with the cursed nature of here and these ghosts, it gets worse and worse. And I definitely had one PC death and multiple very near ones when I ran this for my group. And in the end, it ends with another extra dimensional fight, these weird beings. And these weird beings, they could be a great thing. Like maybe you could use whatever patron that you've involved in your game to say, go investigate this. You get some downloaded order to go tell you where this location is. Because, obviously you're going to want information on what the heck this is going on. And this is not a threat that really is going to destroy your village or comes to you. You have to go to it. So you do need a good reason to go and do that. The ending, these extra dimensional beings, you can fight them, but you really shouldn't. It's more of a puzzle conclusion, and the overall thing is more of a puzzle dungeon anyway. So it's a really fun time there. Really, really enjoy this one. If MCC had a listing in the horror line that DCC gets, this would be it. It's the MCC horror adventure for sure. But that's where this kind of line ends. This one ends at level 3, and you can basically slot in. There aren't much MCC adventures that go past level 3. You have Blessings of the Vile Brotherhood and the Apocalypse. I think that's really it. But I mix it up a little bit. But let's look at handout 2 now. And it'll be our second adventure path. I'm calling it the Gamma Trooper path. I think this one is the most MCC. If you want the big, long MCC adventure path that is all the MCC that MCC has to offer, this is the one. Start with Hive of the Overmind. And the PCs in this funnel, they start controlled by ant devils. They're forced laborers. They've been mind controlled, and they kind of break free of that nonsense. You kill some ant devils. You explored the hive. Probably kill the queen. And it's a really, really great intro adventure. a little longer, so maybe tough to do in a single session unless you like keep a good pace. You can definitely do it. I wouldn't suggest breaking out funnels in general into multiple sessions, but this one you have to be mindful of the time that you have. I'd just say that. Um, there are some really interesting opportunities for role play in a few places, but it's mostly a dungeon crawl. Those role play opportunities, they're mostly with like AI that's still, functioning in this facility. And there's also a few different ways to end this funnel, depending on player choices. How you leave, if maybe you conquer the Ant-Men and now are in charge of them, could go, yeah, like I said, a number of ways. Next up, level 1 in this path, a fallen star for all. Basically, asteroid falls, hits an ancient mining complex. That's what kicks off this adventure. So you start with travel to that place. You get a good chunk of overland travel. That in itself could be its own session. Then there's a big dungeon crawl exploration of the mining complex. It is a really good uh, little area there. Oh, and sorry, see in the chat, um, explanation of the secret saves for Evil of the Ancients. That's how I did it. I made it secret, and there's very few player rolling in that session. I didn't have complaints. I did roll openly, but I didn't like tell them what exactly I was rolling for. They knew the high rolls were better, but they were like, "Are these will saves?" That did happen. They could roll them themselves, but I feel like um, it kind of changes the vibe of it. It's how much of a horror adventure do you want it to be, and how much control. If you're doing the rolling, they're not going to be spending luck on that probably. Uh, but if you're letting them do it, they'll be able to spend luck on their will saves that they need. Um, but you lose a little bit of the horror feeling, in my opinion. But do what's best for your table. Do what's best for your friends and the folks that you're playing with. That's the advice. That's the most important advice that basically anyone can ever give to how should I run this. Um, it's how's the play culture for y'all. So, all right, back to A Fallen Star for All. The mining complex is a really fun place to explore. It's very Jaquays. There's a lot of different ways to get around in there. And in the end, there's quite a high likelihood that the PCs will accidentally blow up the place. But if not, it's a very cool base, interesting resources. Both like, hey, this would be good for our village. And also like, ooh, there's some really interesting ways to get mutated or use the artifacts here to our advantage. Next up, Into the Glowing Depths. Here's our true aquatic adventure. You basically, the intro is you're kind of going along and you just find some random ship in the jungle. And when you go in it, it activates, it locks you in, it flies for a bit, and then takes you down into the ocean. So it really kind of forces you into that in a bait and switch kind of way. Haha, what a pun. The rest of the adventure is set in a deep sea research lab, and it's got it's been there for aeons. It's got leaks, mutant aquatic creatures, and a very cool station AI that's actually helpful and not like bad for the PCs in any way. No sarcasm there. It's actually like, oh, a friendly robot that's not insane. That's a shock. Um, it has a really unique way to end the adventure too, and it from mostly a dungeon crawl for a while, go figure some stuff out. Really cool areas to explore, and it has some basically another faction that's going to get in here and harass the PCs, and maybe some opportunity for role play there, but mostly they just want to kill the PCs and they have their own motivations. The ending, to keep it vague, you have to move a very dangerous and fragile item to a certain point to get the best possible outcome, all while under fire from like the worst that the monster ocean has to offer. So it's a really cool, high tense situation and way to end the adventure. I really, really dig it. Next up, we got Warlords of Atoz. This one, if it's very linear, very short. Like if you read this up, flip it over, I think it's like 12 pages or something. So really short adventure. But I'd say it's the best upper level convention games for Mutant Crawl Classics. Um, this one, if you like the movie Zardoz, you're gonna like this movie. It is just packed with Zardoz references. Just all over the place, from the rumor table to the bad guys. The bad guys are just the dudes from Zardoz with the Zardoz mask, except legally distinct. Um, you're gonna travel to their camp, sneak into a big giant Atoz head, and have a battle. Have a standoff with hologram Atoz, who's been bossing all these dudes around. And you're very likely going to end up in a far off location from where you started. Very, very likely, for reasons that I won't entirely go into. You got to play the adventure for yourself, or at least buy it and read it. Next up, level 4. It's our only official level 4 MCC adventure so far. Blessings of the Vile Brotherhood. This one is a great adventure. Setup is your village's metabot has broken. So if you're coming from Atoz, maybe you finally get back to your village and you're like, oh, things have been going terribly since you guys left. Our metabot broken. We need to send you off again. Or maybe, you can't locate your village and you're teamed up with some new folks and you're living with them and they've got some issues, or maybe this is how you ingratiate yourself and they allow you to live in their village. The metabot's broken and the village elders say, go look for these monks that live in these mountains. They've got a functioning one. We're pretty sure. We heard that they've got a metabot. They call it different things, but that's what they call it. And this adventure, it is like 80% a big hex crawl. So if you want some DCC, MCC hex crawl rules, this is the one to steal from. And it's written by Harley Strauss, so it's going to be good. But it's got rules for, hey, you're going to go this fast if you travel along the road, or this fast if you're like kind of off in, the forest, this fast if you're going over mountains. And here's different, random encounter lists for the different areas of the map. So a bunch of cool stuff in there. And because it's so different, you're going to have a very different adventure, each time you run it or play it. There are a few set locations, hey, when they get to this point on the road, if they're on the road, they're going to encounter this. And they're going to encounter this over here. And they're ones that make sense too. They don't feel forced. But, if you're taking the less traveled path, you're not going to encounter those. And that's just fine. At the end, you've got the monastery at the top. Things aren't going so well up there either. Let's just put it like that. I'll say the monastery area is surprisingly small, but there are a lot of, I think there's only like 3 or 4 keyed locations in it, but there's several empty rooms that, any judge who wants to can fill in those spots themselves and add a little bit extra. Especially, if you look back to your random encounters you have, maybe it's some survivors from one group or another, and they came up here and they regained a little strength and they're waiting for you. But it has quite a fun ending and just really top-notch adventure. Finally, level 5, our only level 5 MCC adventure, the Apocalypse Arc. This one, it's a Brendan LaSalle joint. It is so good. Basically, there's a horrible disease that's getting a bunch of people. It starts when, some survivor approaches you in your village or wherever you are and dies. And, oh no, then there's some weird birds that come and they're like stinging people and they give them the disease as well. And the PCs are quite possibly infected by something that could kill them in just a few days' time. So you track these birds. I think there's a very much play on the birds aren't real conspiracy meme joke going on in this adventure. But you follow them and you find this 5-story tall vehicle that's got this patrolling robotic protector here. So there's like a cool puzzle of like, let's study its patrol route and how to get in. Maybe we can sabotage it. There's some fun stuff there. And then like, okay, you're inside this huge tall structure. There's some cool RP moments with some AI on this mostly. There's, most of the biological creatures on board not friendly. Most, not all. And at one point, there's actually a very kind of strange, unexpected opportunity to leave Terra AD through some kind of portal. So possibly this could be a way to take your campaign elsewhere if you wanted to at level 5. That'd be a great little twist to throw in. But if not, you can keep on Terra AD and align yourself with probably the less malicious of the two AIs here, which is written up as like a, hey, this is a patron which you've just aligned yourself with, but it's not a fully statted up patron, so the judge can fill in a little bit extra there. I'll also here for this adventure path and put it on screen, but I'll give an honorable mention to the adventure The Gene Looms of Janik Vac, which is from Scientific Barbarian #1. It'd be a good one. It's like got a whole region and a hex crawl and a dungeon to go in. And after Warlords of Atoz, it'd be a good one to kind of like stick in there of like, oh, you're far away, you've arrived in this region. And, it's the new region that you played through Blessings of the Vile Brotherhood and Apocalypse Arc in. And you can use that adventure, Gene Looms of Janik Vac, as well. Again, Scientific Barbarian #1, great little adventure. Next up, we'll get to Adventure Path 3, which I'm calling Future Pulp because it's a pretty silly one. We'll start out with Assault in Sky High Tower, which is the adventure that's in the Jetsons. It basically feels like the Jetsons. Feels very inspired by that. It's in the core rulebook, is what I was attempting to say. And did we get the thing on the screen? Maybe I missed it, but I want to show off the different pictures of them. Thank you. Yeah, so Assault on Sky High Tower. Imagine it, if the Flintstones are climbing up to burgle the Jetsons. That's a lot of what this adventure entails. A lot of people have played it because it's in the core rulebook. And it ends with, you probably get a flying car in the end, and again, end somewhere very far off from where you began. Next up, Level 1, Home for the Holodeath. This is probably the goofiest MCC adventure. It's a holiday adventure, so of course it's going to be very, very goofy. It's like, Christmas themed artifacts. It basically takes place in like an old mall that's also got like a little bit of manufacturing. So it's got like weird MCC elves and like an evil tree and any kind of post-apocalyptic Christmas nonsense you could think of. I'll put in our honorable mention to swap out here. Maybe you're in the middle of the summer like we are right now, and you don't want to do a Christmas adventure. You're not a Christmas in July type of person. I'll say Welcome to Eastwood, which is basically Westworld. Show, the book, the movie, whatever your familiarity with it is. You're going to get robot cowboys, weird park features that some are for fun and some are dangerous. Security systems are failing. Maybe you can fix the park. I'll say there's also some temporal shenanigans in Welcome to Eastwood because it's meant to be either DCC or MCC, and it does have some cool pre-gens in the back that I will also point out. But honorable mention, swap that out in the #1 level spot if you aren't feeling too Christmassy. Level 2, we'll continue with that pulp nonsense of When Manimals Attack. It is heavily based on the story The Isle of Dr. Moreau. So, some kids are getting kidnapped from your village. You go track, the kidnappers down, and there's this biosphere with different biome areas, the savanna area, the Arctic area, the swamp area. And, there's problems in each one. And in the end, there's a chance. I like this a lot because sometimes people, they're not happy with their characters. There's a chance in this one to use a genetic resequencer that's programmed to turn people into manimals. So you got a good opportunity there if you get someone and they're not happy with their shaman or something like that. That can be a fun time. At level 3, we're getting into a little bit of third party, or a little bit more with Electric Friends, which is a level 3 star crawl adventure, but it doesn't necessarily need to be set in space. Very minor tweaking needs to be for Mutant Crawl Classics. It's basically, you'll find a robot who's going, I really need this replacement part, otherwise in a while I'm going to go kaput. And he promises like, hey, for Starcrawl, he promises like, I'll reopen this amazing luxury hotel. But for MCC, I'd suggest saying, I will open this like vault in the earth and let you go into this, place that I promise is full of great artifacts. You go and visit this factory. It's a very, it's a pretty small area. This is definitely a one-shot adventure. And you find this artifact, go to the factory, some barely functioning AI over there, get this, replacement part that they need, come back, and that's when you open the dying robot dude. He's gonna say thank you so much, and he's gonna open up some huge vault door that is gonna let you go into the journey into the center of Aerith, which is a DCC adventure. But hey, I called this the Future Pulp adventure path for a reason. Go have some Hollow Earth adventures down there, explore underneath the Earth. There's a bunch of cool content for this, and you're gonna mix your sci-fi and your fantasy even more. There's like cave systems and underground jungles and elephant men and lost cities, and there's a little bit of linkage to the Purple Planet, just a little bit. So if you could veer off and take it in a whole nother direction. I'll talk about the Purple Planet soon enough, though. Don't y'all worry. Next up, our next path is number 4, the Road Warrior path. We can see that on the screen. We'll start out with the new level 0 adventure that's in the core rulebook, only the more recent printings. So, buy the one that's going to come out on DCC Day, or buy the one with the sweet new cover. Came out, I think, late last year. Anyway, Rivers of Iron. It takes place at like an iron scrap mill. It starts working again. There's some like cool random encounters that really bring the environment of this alive. And I'll say this is a short one. This is definitely a funnel that can be done in maybe even 3 hours, but easy to fit in that one session. You're not going to be struggling to keep time. In the end, the iron scrap mill might get destroyed. And at best, it's only going to be around for like a little while longer after the PCs get there. But it could be a good way for the PCs to bring back smelting technology or just knowledge about how to do that to their tribe and kind of advance you guys out of the Stone Age a little bit, or whatever kind of Neolithic-ish age you're in. Next is there's also a level 1 adventure, a new level 1 adventure in the same printing. So pick it up. It's another good one. I believe this one is, if I remember right, it's written by James Poznell, who we'll have on the show pretty soon. It's Under the Salvage Pits, and it's a research park, favored salvage spot, well known, but there's this bandit gang that's claimed it, and they've kind of established some trading, but it's not exactly like the bandits have great working conditions for the people in their gang. They're not exactly here to give fair trades. They're only here to get trades that are good for them. So you're probably going to come in conflict with them, very, very likely. And you will literally explore under the salvage pit to find new artifacts. There's a lot of like research going on of, different new applications for metals. So there's like fun tables for changing your PC and weird new monsters. You will once again probably wreck the area for future explorers and probably end up with some rival bandits in the future ongoing throughout your campaign. At the next level 2, we can do Mayhem on the Mag Train. It's a pretty recent one. Quick gist of it is wormmen are attacking, and like earthworms, they feed on decay. They want plenty and will kill. So you know of one place. These wormmen, they're called the Squick. Perfect name, I guess, for them. They're pretty gross. They have these tunnels, and you find one that leads into an ancient train tunnel. You're going to get on the train, which of course starts. You're going to fight your way through all the different cars. There's some neat RP opportunities between the train AI systems and some fun handouts for like tickets that you can actually give your players. And, this is your ticket with your name and all that kind of jazz. In the end, probably you can go back home, but you could also end up being very far away from where you were. If you do, I would suggest either going into, saying this new region you're in, this is the American region, and run Burger Wars. And it's a pretty sandboxy one, so judges will need to prep and be ready to improv. the PCs are going to get to explore Onion Town. There's a little different factions, and you basically gonna have to probably align with one and knock out at least one of the others. For the kind of vibes of this place, I'm just gonna list 3 different location titles: the Buddy O'Burger Corporate Headquarters, the Palace of the Piggy King, and the Lair of the Salt Lich. So if that doesn't sound like a good time, I guess you like bad times. But honorable mention, I don't know this one yet, but level 3, there will soon be another level 3 MCC adventure, Crash of the Titans, available soon, just over 1 week from now on DCC Day. It's a level 3 adventure where you got to go to the City of Storms, so maybe you had to take the mag train to get there. It's also written by the same author, Tim Snyder, so I don't know how much linkage between the two is written in. I'm sure it's standalone, that's what they tend to be, but it seems like you could possibly have to, tie them together, and it wouldn't be hard at all. Anyway, there's these 2 kaijus that are fighting in the City of Storms, and basically you need to get something from it. There's a pretty good description last night on the Mom Mic, so I'm not going to go too in depth, and it's not even out yet, so, but it's a good one, and, who isn't a sucker for kaijus? Just try not to get stepped on. I think it'll be a good time. Our 5th adventure path is, I'm calling the Far-Flung Traveler. You're going to start with Neverwin Rock, and that is in one of our DCC Day adventure packs. You see which one's up on the screen. And this one, start out level 0. PCs need to complete the Rite of Passage. They take a cool journey through a jungle. There's some neat random encounters. My favorite one has a super intelligent 8-man villain who might be screwing with your village after you finish the adventure and get back. Love it. And then there's a short dungeon that ends in a room with a giant rocket. It's more than just a rocket, it's a time ship. It can take you anywhere and any when. And that plays in perfectly to Ruins of Future Past, which was actually published in the DCC Day Adventure Pack the year before Neverwin Rock, but Neverwin Rock was then written as a prequel to this one. So Ruins of Future Past, it's got some ways you can run it standalone, but works perfectly leading into it if you go that way. PCs start in a collapsing structure. There's a small random table to change the first events of the adventure, which is pretty fun. There's some very weird creatures in this one. About halfway through, there's a particularly tough one that's more of a puzzle disguised as combat. And then there's another puzzle in here. Yes, kaiju. I see in the chat. Yes, get some 200-foot tall, Godzilla types in here. Everyone loves that in the games. Anyway, Ruins of Future Past. Chat, whether you're live or you're on YouTube later, tell me how you handled the bending light through crystal puzzle, because I can figure it out when a judge described to me as a player. When I ran this one later on, I had some trouble reading the text. I didn't quite get it then either. So I need someone to tell me how to run this puzzle. I can't figure it out. I'm not smart enough. Put the explanation in the comments. But it ends up, find a time portal, got to use an artifact check to get home. Kind of remind me a little bit of Samurai Jack here. But hopefully you get back home. If you don't nail that artifact check, maybe you get almost home and your time's a little bit off. But, you get closer. Next up, we're going another adventure pack 1. It's the Last Life Guardian. I imagine this one on this path, you didn't quite get home and you're traveling back, and you take a trip to the water park. If you did get home, maybe you've heard rumors of a life guardian who can restore the dead back to life, and you decide the risk is worth the reward. But any kind of rumor like that's you can pretty good. And since it's set in an ancient water park, you can find tons of fun areas: rec center, lazy river, water slide, all that kind of goodness. And you got it in the life guardian. It's a lifeguard droid. It's still functioning. Getting it and getting out with it means dealing with some pretty nasty aquatic creatures. And next, nothing not quite yet. I would say maybe the PCs, they never make it home. If they never make it home, it's because they are stuck in the web of all torment. This is a DCC horror adventure, and it's great. The demi-plane of suffering. And without spoiling too much, there's kind of a Groundhog Day kind of situation. The baddie in here has some real unkillable serial killer or slasher villain vibes, kind of like Jason or Freddy. Um, and this could be a fun way to transition your PCs out of Terra AD, or maybe you're coming over from DCC and this is how you transfer them into Terra AD, but could be a good one. Then I would follow it up, and assuming they escape the demi-plane of suffering, send their butts to the purple planet and run that big hex crawl. There's 3 different big adventures. There's the Tombs of the Ancients, which have a bunch of mini adventures that have some fun here and introduce a new kind of artifact system that's very different than the one they're used to dealing with. And lastly, our last adventure path, I call it Nature's Healing. Let's pop that up on the screen. It is a super fun time with this one. I love the funnel in here, Seeking the Post-Humans. It gives you a mini region that has 2 villages that are atop a mesa, and down below there's a big jungle. You're in this long canyon, and you're not just like Neolithic dummies. Y'all know about agriculture, and that's kind of where things start out. Agriculture goes poorly because of this poisonous black rain that comes overhead. And you're basically sent out and told, find some artifacts that will save us from starvation. And you explore and very quickly meet a strange AI guy called Max 16 Characters, who I believe is a stretch goal patron in X-Crawl. I think I saw that on the preview on the other night here on the Twitch channel. But X-Crawl launches on Kickstarter tomorrow, so y'all be paying attention to that too. Be cool to get him as a patron there. You'd then be able to use it in MCC also. Anyway, you go and, find some things. Max asks you to do a few things, and eventually you're going to get to a real functioning city that's still run by normal humans. Well, they didn't know y'all were coming. They didn't want y'all to come. And y'all have brought some nasty, nasty germs that they just cannot deal with. So congrats, you've doomed the city just by visiting it. And you probably won't know at first, but you could always have some survivor come and die really soon, flying some bubble car out to seek revenge and tell you that you doomed, thousands and thousands of people and ruined a whole city. And then kind of set your characters on maybe a path towards trying to make it up, trying to put a little good back into the world, since they apparently took a lot out of it. But we'll go back to the third party for a little bit with Children of the Fallen Sun. This one, a spaceship crashes into the Earth, and PCs must travel to it, explore the wreckage, find these 2 factions that worship 2 different patron AIs, and both of those are fully statted up and listed in the module. So, and it's got some cool kind of, I think this was the very first third-party MCC content out there. And it's written by Stephen Newton, and it's a really, really cool area to explore and has some really cool implications. It promised a sequel adventure, and that did eventually come. It's the Omnivery of Eden, and it doesn't have the title that was originally promised, but it is the sequel adventure. It's and this one, it's an official adventure. It's not, a few names and things were changed, but the last one promised a seed vault, and this one takes you to a ancient seed vault. And you get to a snowy climate in here, probably the first time the PCs have ever seen snow, so there's some interesting stuff. I also like that it uses the Gene Police as antagonists. Plus there's this weird geneticist guy in the Gene Vault who's cloned himself a bunch, and there's a lot of a lot of weirdness with that. Another neat thing in here, it has a possible timeline for MCC that sets the adventure about 3,000 years after the Great Disaster in the year 6,000 and something. And the ending has a lot of options too that might require the PCs to be responsible for this facility or pass off the responsibility to someone else, and good adventure hooks for the future. One of which I'll say holds up very well into the adventure Holding Up the Sky, which can be found in Scientific Barbarian number 4. Then I'll say, again, proceeding on to, what are we at? We're at Level 3 now, Killer of Giants. This one is an America module, but you could adapt it pretty easily. It takes place in an ancient military base, so there are some connections you could make from the last one as well. It wouldn't be too much work, not at all. One of those endings says, basically, let's go to this like ancient, government place. Umerica assumes this being more recent to whatever the Great Disaster, so, adjust for personal taste. But this is a very kind of open area for the players to explore how they wish. There's factions to mess with. One by the books is aliens. So change that to maybe Gene Police. Keep it from the last one, or change them to the Vile Brotherhood. That'd be really easy too. Another faction being, Facility AI, and then a small one. You got a group of basically manimals led by a psychic elephant man. So what's not to love about that? And the ending will, in some way or another, involve a nuke. Hopefully, it doesn't go off. Very, very possible to possibly TPK yourself with that nuke. I will say that as well. We will continue with the third party with Jungle Incursion of the Batman. This is a really recent one. And it's a pretty focused like dungeon crawl. There's it's written in more of an OSC style, old school essentials with like bullet points and stuff. It has a brand new patron in here, which is pretty cool. This is a very combat heavy one. Not much RP, but there's been a lot of RP in this adventure module, so I kind of stuck it in here for that level 4 spot, and also because hey, maybe just like let's kill a bunch of junk. We're tired of dealing with all this faction play. That might be a welcome change of pace. Then last one, level 5. I'd say end it with Against the Atomic Overlord, which is a DCC thing. I think it was published right before MCC came out, and but it's so easy to make into an MCC adventure. It's a big sandboxy adventure. Kind of suppose you're probably starting in like a hover car or something, but you can just change it up. It's a huge sandbox anyway. So, and I would imagine. And I did exactly this. I said, this is the city from Seeking the Post-Humans. Things got so bad so quickly after y'all ruined it, you darn PCs. Things have deteriorated so badly. And big, fun sandbox, multiple factions, though you'll probably align with one that seems like the most chill. And there's another that's like very much like it's got mind-controlling monsters, so you're probably going to want to kill them. But there's another faction though, a small one. So, and this one, you sandbox around, figure out what you need to do, and it also ends with a nuke, but one that you want to set off. In DCC, you're using magic to alter this nuke's demeanor, and either way, it's gonna destroy. You've aimed it at the big mind control tank. There's basically, y'all remember Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's basically a Krang type guy in an enormous super tank. And you're aiming this nuke at him and his army. But you can use, let's say, mutations or artifacts instead of magic to change it and either increase mutations or decrease mutations. So you could end up making Terra 80 more or less mutated in this region world, depending on what you guys do. And I think that is a awesome way to kind of end a campaign. So there we have it. There's 6 adventure paths for Mutant Crawl Classics. I can't believe I talked for this much time. Obviously, there's a whole lot of MCC content, so don't anyone ever tell me again that there's not enough. There's 6 campaigns right there that you can go and have fun with. But that is it. I've babbled on long enough, and if you're still here, thank you for being here. Next up, we got Crash Course, so stay tuned for that. There's going to be some more fun and just a short break in between. But with that, I'll sign off. Thank you for joining us. Oh, handouts in the Raw Discord? Absolutely, that's a good idea. I'll post the pictures that we made appear here on the Dungeon Crawlers Discord channel for rules as written. You'll see that very shortly. On YouTube, well, you're just going to have to find it elsewhere or pause at the appropriate times. But hope you all like and subscribe. Hope you all are having a great day. And I hope you all keep on rolling dice and keep on being kind to each other. And we will end it with that. Thank y'all.